Hi, Marlena. How you doing? Okay, so no worries here. I mean, it looks like you had to take on some extra work, and that's fine. I understand. It is the summer months after all, so I'm not really too concerned. I mean, it's only a day. I'm not really concerned about it. But thank you so much for mentioning that. So let's jump into your written rationale first. And you said something really interesting in the written rationale, and I think that it points to a really good a good understanding, um, good proficiency and understanding the the basic tenets of this particular portion of the project, and that's the monogram, and that is taking the monogram and kind of developing it based on what your perceived mission of the company is. So, in previous exercises with the actual symbolic logo and the word mark, we actually took words from our word map and encoded those words into the meaning behind the work. So and that's a perfectly feasible. So it's actually a fantastic way to approach logo development, logo design, concept development, and um, and word mark development. So it's really a good way to think of the words that describe the company and then use those words to encode meaning. It's very much indicative of a professional workflow. So it's a fantastic way for the class to take direction. So I'm really pleased at what everyone did in that respect. But I think this assignment's a little bit different in that it's a little bit more abstract, asking you to develop a monogram based on the general perception of the company's mission. And I think that you got that here, and you understand that. As indicated by this sentence right here, I was considering the qualities that represent my client as well as the typefaces that represent those qualities. So in a nutshell, we're kind of doing the same thing. We're just doing this all-encompassing look at the qualities of the company instead of narrowing it down to one of our words to indicate a quality of that company and then using typefaces to represent that quality. So really good job there. I think it's a logical path to take. Um, let's jump to the sketches. I agree with everything you're saying here, and I just want to jump to the sketches. So let's go ahead and take a look now. It's interesting because each of the sketches are probably the ones that I would have also. Let me just see if I can. There we go. I just wanted to get those down. Let's take a look at these. This I think is interesting. I do. I think it's such a simple, straightforward solution. However, I think that it would be interesting if you were to connect the words George Mason and Wellness Center together in terms of grouping them by association, meaning that George, the G and the M are associated because they're the name of the person who's on the company, and the D, W, and C because it's a wellness center. So by that, I mean, what I would suggest here is just removing the dot between the G and the M and the W and the C, and just leaving the dot as a separation in between the two. That way, the M is clearly associated with the G, and the W is clearly associated with the C. So you would have George Mason, then a little break, then Wellness Center. And I think that would make really good visual sense there. This is interesting, an interesting take. You mentioned a novel idea, and I think that yes, you are. This is interesting. I don't think it'll work in this particular situation because I think it's a little bit difficult to ascertain really what's happening in terms of what is associated with what. In other words, this almost looks like it's an OWC, and that's by no fault of yours. That's just basically the basic mechanics of the way that these typefaces are composed. Again, another novel idea, changing the C. That's something I think is really super interesting. However, for a wellness center, I think it's a little bit too, I don't want to use the word cute, but I can't think of a better word. A wellness center is something that should be considered to be a very, very serious entity. So this kind of cuteness, I think, although it would work beautifully in other situations, I just don't think it adheres to the basic tenets of what the client is trying to put forth with their mission. This is traditional, and this will work. Most definitely, this will definitely work. I would maybe even consider using it within the circle. That'll work. Again, too cute. These descripted, I'm not sure. I don't think it has the strength it needs to stand alone. And then this is, with the backwards G and the app, it's just a little difficult to ascertain. Likewise here. So when I said I would choose the ones that you have chosen, the ones you have circled, I would definitely go with either number 1 or number 11. Good job numbering your examples too. It makes it so much easier to see what's going on. Number 8's also got some potential too. However, number 8 is somewhat of a variation of number 11. And I like the way that number 11 has kind of got the spaces between. So it's not just an M over a G. You kind of got those little spaces between where the G meets the M, those little open spaces. I think that's really super interesting. So it kind of intertwines the G and the M, giving them one basic visual posture. All right, so really good job. Now, as you know, I'm not a big fan of saying, okay, go with this direction. I really want to just talk about the visual merits and the good and the not so good, or of each of the marks, and then let you make your decisions from there. So that being said, I would recommend that you go ahead and take a look at these again, take a closer look, and weigh them against my comments, and then move forward from there with the example that you think holds the most potential. All right, great job. Any questions, please let me know. I'll be glad to clarify. Good job. Thank you very much.